G'day guys, Duckville here. Welcome to game 2 of this TvP mech analysis that we're going to have a look at today. We currently have our featured Terran player GoOdy down here, over here at the sort of 9 o'clock position on Lost Temple. His opponent in this particular match is going to be adelscott, who is another player on the Euro server. I believe he's somewhere around the same sort of level as GoOdy. I think they may even be in the same ladder as well, but anyway, that's of little consequence. But we saw in game 1, there are some spoilers now. I'm going to give you the count of 3 to either go and check out the first video or face the spoilers. Game 1, we actually saw GoOdy move out with a nice push to the front of Night End's natural. He did a nice little push there, put up some tanks, put up some bunkers just to try and secure an early sort of position there. It didn't actually work out in the end, but still he got some shots off and did what he could at the Protoss natural there. Then got he moved out halfway through the game, or near the end of the game I suppose. He moved out with a very big tank Hellion force. There was realistically not much anti-air in the group, but he moved out nonetheless and just got absolutely stomped by some great flanking by the Protoss forces. There were a lot of zealots, there were a lot of stalkers, there were a couple of colossi and some void rays in the mix, and just to top it off, there were immortals at the front. Now this is what we were talking about in the first game, in that in StarCraft 2, one of the reasons that you don't seem to see much of the mech builds against Protoss is that there are a lot more counters than there used to be in Brood Wars. So as I said before, you've got things like immortals. If you're not careful, colossi from range can pick off units. You've got things like, one thing I really want to see a bit more is immortal drops. You can actually drop immortals on top of tanks and they actually just rip apart the tanks, of course, given their bonus damage and their lack of incoming damage. So that's one big thing I really want to see a bit more in this sort of thing when Protoss are playing Terran and Terran does a mech. But yeah, so this sort of the mixture of units from the Protoss actually just totally negated what GoOdy pushed forward with. So he actually lost all of his attacking force, and then was just forced into a very desolate position where he had only a few tanks to defend. He had very little anti-air still, and was just forced to GG out because of the lack of his third base, which was obviously used to secure a couple of extra gas, which you really do need for this build. So here on Lost Temple, we've got close spots. We do have close spots by air, I suppose, and obviously adelscott's going to be very safe in that regard, because this is not a build where you get a lot of air. You don't need a lot of medivacs, sorry. You don't need banshees, anything like that, because the main focus is going to be heavy ground damage and from range with the tanks, and obviously you're going to have either hellions or thors or a mixture of all three together to just sort of secure all the different facets of an attack. So we've got GoOdy putting up his standard opening here. He's got his factory up with the tech lab just about done. We've got a starport on the way as well. We've got a Rax that's done with a cute little rally into the bunker from the side there. So he's very secure in his initial opening here. He's got the bunker there, which is obviously going to be used just in case the Protoss player decides to push in early, but he's not going to. As we can see here, he's going to secure his warp gate tech. He's got a robo, and I would say he's going to expand quite shortly, given that he's got this robo out now, and he's going to use the observer to scout out what is happening over at GoOdy's base. So we've got just a Viking here coming out just to secure the air, just in case there's anything cheesy, such as a cheese ray. We've got a tank out as well. So in this game, probably what we're going to be looking for is very much another Brood War style mech build, in which you would want to see GoOdy making tank walls across here, so we can secure all of the bases up over here, and obviously the island as well. Because if you can secure a tank line going across this sort of position here, it's quite a lot of trouble for the Protoss to come across and stop it unless they do drops of their own. So we'll have to see what happens with that. We've got this one Viking just coming across, seeing what's happening here. Another possibility as well is, of course, that GoOdy could take some tanks and actually come across to the natural here and just siege up this natural expansion, which is a really, really big hassle for players to deal with in this particular matchup. And you definitely see it a lot more in Terran versus Zerg, but I would not count it out here in this particular matchup either. So GoOdy is now moving out. He does have an observer tailing his forces, a bit of a James Bond movie here. He can see what's happening, but he cannot see him. This force is going to move out here. They're going to secure the Zelnaga watchtower. They're going to see that there's nothing else coming out here. This is a lot like the push which we saw in Game 1 from GoOdy, where he sent out 3 tanks, a bunch of Marines, and some SCVs to try and set up some bunkers. Now what we're going to see is the Protoss is going to try and engage a bit earlier. He stops the bunker. Bunker gets stopped. There are still a lot of Stalkers here, and the Stalkers will have a bit of trouble dealing with all of this, given the large damage from the tanks and the Marines as well. But the Immortal comes in front. Immortal's taking all the hits from the tanks, and the Stalkers are going to clean up all of those siege tanks. And as we can see here, the Viking lands to try and help out, but there is no way that's going to help penetrate this particular wall from the Protoss player adelscott. But he's going to actually, there it is, he's actually going to move across and actually take the high ground here and actually try and make sure that adelscott cannot move across and take his natural and keep the natural, I suppose you could say. But the tank goes up. He's going to put some turrets up here just to defend against air. Meanwhile, adelscott's going to try and push in here. There is not much here, although I doubt he actually is aware that he could actually just walk in and probably finish the game here. But there is a tank now which is going to put a bit of trouble on these Stalkers and not going to let them in. So this is once again one of the parts of this particular build is that you can do this early sort of harass with the tanks and with a few Marines, just to try and make sure your opponent does not get away with taking any sort of early expansions. But you do still need to be careful of what is back here defending your own base, of course, because if you do what adelscott here has done and just sort of move out without any regard for what's happening at the natural, you could get steamrolled by something early as well. So we're going to see a bunker here from GoOdy as well. He's really taken to this high ground here. He's moving in, I suppose. And we've got some Hellion here just running around here, doing a bit of mischief, just taking out some of the pros. We do see 4 kills on this Hellion. It is about to die though. There we go. And we've got a Colossi over here to provide the high ground reach, and he's going to shoot off this tank. The tank goes down. There is a Viking and a couple of turrets here, so the Colossi is not going to get away with anything. As you can see, it's on 14 health. You do not want to lose that Colossus early in the game like this, but he has gotten the vision from the Colossus with its big ass legs, and it's going to be able to clean up most of what is left here at this high ground position. So now that we've sort of had this early aggression from GoOdy, we've had a little bit of counter aggression from adelscott. We're probably going to see this move into a little bit of a macro phase. Now, this is one problem which has been brought up with doing this mech build. Is normally in Brood War, when players would do this, you would, as I mentioned in Game 1, a lot of the Terran focus was on securing an extra base, securing maybe 3 bases, and then sort of taking up, getting all of your tank upgrades, getting your weapons and obviously armor upgrades for your tanks and that sort of thing, and then just making sure that you can move out slowly and just slowly snake across the map and take out what you can. One of the problems here with the way that it's played in SC2 is that if a Protoss player actually scouts out what you're doing and can see that you're just going to turtle up on a couple of bases, they can actually get a whole heap of forces and actually just come in and steamroll you with a timing push around about, it would have normally been about now, or probably a little bit earlier, that you would have seen it, but of course adelscott had to deal with this this whole mess that was up here at the natural expansion. But securing the bases can be a little bit of a difficult task sometimes. Not only that, is that if a Protoss actually sees you doing it, they may even just go out and expand a couple of times themselves, much like what adelscott's here has done. He's taking the expansion up here at 2 o'clock. There is an SCV to scout it, but he's not actually going to